Mirasee.
I feel like people got a very distilled, actionable course that might not have been created in the same way if I were doing 15-minute modules, which is pretty much what I'd always done before.
Hello and welcome to Course Lab, the show that teaches course creators like you how to make better online courses. I'm Danny and Abe, founder and CEO at Mirasee, and I'm here with my co-host, Abe Crystal, the co-founder of Rizuku. In each episode, we showcase a course and course creator who is doing something really interesting with their course. Our guest today is Gayle Van Gils. Gayle is a mindfulness teacher, leadership consultant, life coach, and award-winning author with over 3 decades of experience teaching transformational work. Gayle, welcome to Course Lab.
Thank you so much, Danny. It's an honor to be here.
So I'd love to hear, just first of all, who are you? What do you do? How did you come to be doing it? Tell us your story.
Well, it's a really long and winding story in a way. I guess one of my lines is that I've lived long enough to be doing what I'm doing because the parts of me have all come together. So from a fairly young age, I was most interested in just basically, how could you be the best of being human? That was the question on my mind as a child, which is a somewhat strange question. So I found myself investigating religions, and quite early on, I became a practitioner of meditation through the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. I have a psychology undergraduate degree and an MBA, and I've been doing this work with people with the psychological side of people in organizations and with their personal development, both in the business world and as a spiritual teacher outside the business world for all of my adult life. So what basically began to happen was that those of us who had been teaching courses in mindfulness realized that this was something that was becoming more accepted in the business world. And I discovered particularly that at Google, where they were doing the Search Inside Yourself program, that it was a really good fit with what I was doing. So I became one of the first certified teachers in that methodology, which teaches leadership skills through mindfulness and emotional intelligence that became so popular at Google that then other companies wanted it, and they trained a few of us to be certified to teach that. I also worked on one of the earliest online companies that was trying to create an environment for course builders. It was called Alive World, and it was out of New Zealand.
Very cool. So tell us about how that exploration turned into the online course that you are delivering today.
So that's actually kind of magical because I've been delivering courses, creating courses, coaching, training, doing all that for so long. And this course is called Smart Tips Wellness, but I never defined myself as a wellness expert. Now I guess that would be probably a good title for myself. But on the web, I guess I have a pretty big profile because I've done so much. And on LinkedIn, the people from Udemy for Business, which is a back end of Udemy that I wasn't aware of. We're probably all familiar with the front end of thousands, tens of thousands or more of courses that are fairly low cost on the front end of Udemy. So I had not considered putting my work there because I thought that they were just being sold for too small of an amount. But it turns out that Udemy has customers that are a B2B side. So the business customers were asking for this course on wellness, especially during this COVID epidemic. So I guess that the people that were looking for what they thought wellness was looked at what my background was in mindfulness, compassion, emotional intelligence, etc., and said, well, let's invite Gail to propose a course. So I did.
Very cool. And how I know that self-awareness is a big part of what you teach. How does self-awareness tie into this course?
I infused awareness into every aspect of wellness. So I think I talk about emotional wellness, mental wellness, physical wellness, financial wellness, interpersonal relationships, on and on. I think there are 7 or 8 different categories in which developing awareness of where you are now, where you want to be, and then making a plan to get there is how you can change and become well in all areas of life.
Very cool. So tell us about the architecture of the course. If I sign up for it, what do I find? How long is it? How many other people have signed up for it? Like, tell us about the course in terms of the results it's had and the architecture that made it happen.
Well, that's pretty exciting. So, first of all, the architecture of the course is a little bit unique because the Smart Tips format, each component, each sort of module, you might say, is only from 2 to 5 minutes long. So they're little bite-sized pieces that have content, a practice, a chance to follow along. I created a workbook, so you have, work you can do while following that course. So you get to actually experience it, practice it, and implement it all during that, small module. So you can pick and choose what it is you're looking for when you're looking for it. Although I will say most people go through 100% of the course because I can see all the statistics. So most people do look at it all or follow it all. I get numbers of how much of the course that people watch on any given day. So many of the days that I look in that day, people go through 100% of the course all at once, which is 3 hours.
That's really cool.
One of the things that interested me was you decided to take it sounds like a pretty broad scope, like it covers many different topics, almost like a library. And I think it'd be interesting to discuss like how that's almost a contrarian approach or counter to conventional wisdom. So like commonly we would advise people when designing a course to make sure it's laser focused and like narrow down your topic and then narrow down some more. So it's really, really as specific as possible and you're not trying to teach too much. And instead, if I'm understanding correctly, you kind of decided to go broad and help people with a wide range of things in a single course. So how did you decide to do that? And what have been the advantages and the trade-offs of going kind of broad and wide as opposed to very narrow and deep?
Well, that's a great question, Abe, because I'm with you. I mean, I normally would not have tried to cover so much in a course. The great, wonderful, magical thing that I mentioned happened to me was this came to me as a request. So basically, Udemy knew what their clients wanted. Their clients were asking for this broad spectrum well-being wellness course because people were suffering. And they couldn't pinpoint exactly what people were suffering with. So I created this outline and said, which parts of this do you need? And they said, no, we want all of that. So I think the answer is that it was meeting a need rather than me trying to figure out a small topic that I believe people need, is that they needed all of it. It's been pretty phenomenal. I think just as when I looked right before our call, I was at 4,150 people, and these people are from all over the world. I think there's over 75 or 80 countries represented. The most people are from the United States, then comes India, then comes Poland. I mean, who would have ever thought I'd reach people in Poland? But they're the number 3 or 4 country on my list. So I think the answer might be that people have different needs wherever they are, but they're similar enough that all these needs are human needs.
And what have you learned from feedback or questions that you've had from students in terms of how that approach has benefited them?
Well, basically, when people, I get ratings, and they have the option to leave comments. When they leave comments, they say, this is amazing. This has helped me in all areas of my life. I wish I had known this 10 years ago. I wish I had, someone taught this to me earlier, that kind of thing. That's one of the things that is so great for me, is because my content really addresses even, sort of the business environment and how to do meetings and how to, get exercise at your chair, everything because I know that this is for people in businesses, but for me to try to reach these people personally, it would have been almost impossible, to advertise and reach them.
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't know. Danny, was there anything else you wanted to drill into?
Sorry, I was just scribbling notes for the debrief. There's so much great stuff here. I don't think so. I think we covered everything that I have in my notes. Gail, is there anything about the architecture design of the course that you really want to make sure we cover?
Well, I do think that the small bite-sized pieces is very appealing to people. By doing 2 to 5 minutes, I really learned to be quite succinct in what I was saying. So I really had to drill down to the core of the message. And then I drilled that even further to put it in the workbook for them. So I feel like people got a very distilled, actionable course that might not have been created in the same way if I were doing 15-minute modules, which is pretty much what I'd always done before.
That's really interesting. Very, very cool. Abe, do you want to do the readout?
Gayle Van Gils is a mindfulness teacher, leadership consultant, life coach, and award-winning author with over 3 decades of experience teaching transformational work. You can find her at transformyourculture.com. That's transformyourculture.com.
Now stick around for my favorite part of the show, where Abe and I will pull out the very best insights and practical takeaways for you to take and apply to your own course. So Abe, let's debrief. What jumped out to you from our conversation with Gail?
Yes, I think the theme here for me was tied into the idea of thinking from first principles rather than just kind of following sort of standard advice or templates. So I mentioned this in the interview that advice we commonly give to people who are creating courses online is don't try and do too much, right? Don't stretch yourself too thin by trying to cover a million different topics in one course. For one thing, it'll be a ton of work to create and may even get bogged down building the course and never get it done. But it's also going to be more difficult to market, right? The easiest courses to market are the ones that have a very, very specific kind of promise that you can make to new customers or a clear problem that you can solve for people. And Gail did the opposite of that advice and was incredibly successful. So it's worth unpacking and discussing a bit, why did this work for her and what does it mean? So her course covers this broad range of topics around health and wellness and mindfulness. It provides kind of short tips, not really in-depth curriculum on each one. And people love it. So I think the reason it worked in this context is because she didn't actually have a marketing challenge. Udemy came to her with an audience for this course already and just wanted her content to fit a known need, which is really cool and pretty unusual, right? Not many people are in that situation. But it's understanding that context helps to understand why she was able to take a different approach than the quote unquote conventional wisdom. And then the sort of meta takeaway about that is that it's not that the conventional wisdom is wrong, that I think it's still the right advice in most situations to narrow down your course topic. But it's always worth reflecting on, hey, does my situation and context match the what the conventional wisdom is intended to address, or do I need to step back and think about this from a different perspective to find the right solution?
Yeah, I think that's very on point. I think it's also worth kind of emphasizing that it would be easy for someone to listen to this and be like, oh, well, Udemy came to her and said, why don't you put your course on our platform? Basically, she got this opportunity on a silver platter, but actually, she spent decades putting herself where the opportunity could find her by publishing broadly, widely, and deeply. And so, the more work you do, the more content you create, the higher profile you have, the more these opportunities will tend to gravitate to you. And then she did very well with it. I thought the metric that she shared, that essentially if someone starts watching the content, even though it's these snackable 2 to 5 minute videos on a very diverse range of topics, so that would really lend itself to kind of buffet style. I'll watch the videos on this topic and then the videos on that topic. What she's found with her data based on the execution, the quality of what she's provided, is that once people get in, they're essentially binging on it. They're going through all 3 hours of content. That's kind of a lot in the same day. So there is something to the fact of she had a unique opportunity presented to her, but there's also a lot to be taken away here from the fact that we're all presented with opportunities all the time, and we sometimes do more or less to facilitate the gravitation of those opportunities to us. We also sometimes do more or less to capitalize on those opportunities. And that's the big takeaway for me hearing Gail's story.
Right. This was yet another overnight success that was 30 years in the making, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it is also interesting to think about why was her course sort of binge-worthy in essence, right? Why did she see people going from video 1 to video 2 to video 3 with such engagement? And the lesson there potentially, for people listening is there's a lot you can do to just make your course more consumable, right? Clearly, these are not, just sort of dry, very formulaic videos that she's created, or people would not be so engaged with them. So there's something she's doing in terms of her energy, right, to make sure it was high and compelling for people. There's something she's doing in terms of the language she's using and how she's communicating to people that is continuing to draw them in video after video. So that could be a good challenge to consider as well, as how can I make my course more binge worthy, essentially.
That was great. I don't have any other notes. Do you?
No, this one was pretty focused, so I think we're good. Thank you for listening to Course Lab. I'm Abe Crystal, co-founder of Rizuku, here with Danny Iny, CEO and founder of Mirasee. This episode of Course Lab was produced by Cynthia Lamb. Missy Lance assembled the episode. Danny Iny is our executive producer. Big thanks to Gayle Van Gils for taking the time to share her passion about her course. You can find her at transformyourculture.com. That's transformyourculture.com. Don't forget to tune into Mirasee's podcast, Making It. In each episode, a successful entrepreneur will share what making it means to them and what they've learned along the way. Make sure you don't miss the really great episodes coming up on Course Lab, so subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. And if you like the show, please leave us a starred review. It's the best way to help us get these ideas to more people. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
We're not recording anymore, right? Because I was told
we are, but
we are. Okay. Well, I'm just going to tell you because I was told not to talk all about you. But really, Danny, I mean, so I've been around since fire pole marketing.
Well, that was a long time ago. I'm very flattered.